I have cleaned this house for 7 years, long enough for its walls to start whispering to me. They say you can tell everything about a family by how they live behind closed doors, and I have lived behind theirs, only as a shadow. I know the cupboards that creak because the eldest son used to sneak cookies at night and blamed it on rats. I know which curtains hide fingerprints from slammed doors. I know which smiles are real and which are painted on like the expensive portraits in the hallway. The mornings always start the same. Mrs. Haldon greets me with a polite, practiced smile, the kind that belongs on a mannequin. Her hands tremble when she puts down her teacup, though she pretends not to notice. The children, Emma and Luke, try to look cheerful but watch the adults like prey tracking predators. And Mr. Haldon, towering and polished in his suit, walks around inspecting everything, everyone, as if the whole world exists to disappoint him. 7 years of this choreography. But the morning the daughter-in-law arrived crying, mascara bleeding down her cheeks, she shattered the routine like dropped crystal. Her name is Mara. She married into this family 2 years ago, too young and too hopeful, carrying dreams and recipes and the kind of smile you see on brides who don't yet know what the world expects of them. Today that smile was gone. She stumbled through the doorway as if the wind had pushed her, one arm wrapped protectively around her ribs. I saw the mother rush to her, guiding her in with forced calm. The father paced up and down the hallway like a storm confined to human shape, muttering curses under his breath. Their son, Mara's husband, stood still at the bottom of the stairs, face blank, hands shoved deep in his pockets. When he finally looked up, our eyes met. He looked away quickly. I was told to continue cleaning, told not to worry, told not to listen. But houses have thin walls, and pain has a way of echoing. Later, when I went to empty the laundry basket in their room, I noticed the shirt with smudges shaped like fingers. Dark ones, angry ones, and I was still staring at it when Mara walked in silently behind me, her steps soft, her breath shaky. She handed me a folded note tucked inside a sock. No words, just a fleeting look of terror. I knew then, this was no longer just a job. And when I read that note, I realized the danger in this house was far worse than I ever imagined. I waited until I reached the pantry to unfold the note, hidden between stacks of flour and sugar where no one but me ever goes. It was small, written on torn stationery with shaky handwriting that seemed ready to collapse. Please help me, before he hurts the children too. Not me, not again. Before he hurts the children too. The ground shifted under me. This family had secrets, yes, but this was a fault line. I tucked the note into my apron just as Mrs. Haldon entered the kitchen. She looked exhausted, older than she did yesterday. She asked me, gently but with urgency, if I could keep Emma and Luke occupied for the afternoon. Her voice trembled on certain words: play, outside, safe, as if each one cost her a piece of herself. I nodded. I always nod. It's my job to say yes. The children were quieter than usual, especially Luke, who kept glancing back at the house. Is Mom okay? He whispered once when we sat in the garden. His voice cracked on Mom. I reassured him, though reassurance felt like lying. Inside, muffled arguing seeped through the walls. Angry male tones, soft pleading female ones. The children looked toward the sound instinctively. By evening, the storm had settled on the surface anyway. The sun emerged, composed, shirt changed, eyes cold. Mara followed behind him, her face clean, hair brushed, mascara reapplied, painted back together. But I saw her flinch when he touched her shoulder. When I collected the laundry that night, I found her waiting for me in the hallway. I didn't think you'd read it yet, she whispered. Her gaze darted around like a hunted animal. I didn't know what else to do. I told her to meet me in the downstairs storage room in 10 minutes where no cameras watched. The family claimed the cameras were for safety, but I knew better. Cameras don't watch for danger. They watch for disobedience. She nodded quickly and vanished. My heart pounded as I descended the narrow staircase into the cold, dim storage room. Dust floated through slivers of light from the small window. My hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the decision forming inside me. Because the note was only 8 words long. But those 8 words meant I could no longer pretend. And when Mara finally stepped into the room, what she revealed next made my blood run cold. Mara closed the storage room door behind her with trembling fingers. She stood still for a moment, eyes down, hands twisting in front of her. When she finally looked up, The fluorescent light revealed the truth the makeup tried to hide. A blooming purple bruise along her jaw, finger marks around her upper arm, and something deeper in her expression, something so familiar it woke a long-buried ache in my chest. Fear disguised as endurance. "I don't want to cause trouble," she whispered, the words like a confession. "I just need to keep the children safe." I asked her what happened. Her lips quivered, but she pressed them together as if swallowing pain. "He gets angry. He says it's my fault. He always says it's my fault." She touched her ribs gently. This time, Emma tried to stop him. Her voice broke. He pushed her. She hit the dresser. I felt something inside me snap. "He'll kill us," she said softly. "Maybe not on purpose, but he will." My chest tightened. I have seen this before, seen how cruelty grows roots in a house like this. 7 years of watching patterns, tones, shifts. Cruel men rarely become kind again. Myra reached into her pocket and pulled out a small key. "This is for the basement storage locker. There are documents, things I've collected." She hesitated. "Proof. Proof." The word sat heavy between us. "Why me?" I asked her. "Because you see everything," she whispered. "Because I know you care about the children, and because you don't look at me like I'm crazy." I took the key, though it felt like holding a burning coal. I wasn't just crossing a line, I was stepping into a war. "You'll help me?" she asked, desperate. I thought of Emma's shy smile, Luke's trembling hands. I thought of the bruises, the note, the lies that held this family together like rot holding up old boards. "Yes," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "But we have to be careful." Her shoulders sagged in relief, but her eyes remained fearful. "He suspects something. If he thinks I'm trying to run," the doorknob rattled. We froze. "Mara," a voice called from the hallway, not her husband, worse. It was Mrs. Haldon. And when the door finally opened, the secret she revealed forced me to question everything I thought I knew about this family. The door creaked open, and Mrs. Haldon stood there, framed in the dim hallway light. Her face was calm, too calm. She didn't look startled to find us together. If anything, she seemed resigned. "Mara," she said softly, "come upstairs. He's asking for you." I felt Mara stiffen beside me, her breath catching. But Mrs. Haldon's gaze shifted to me, and something unspoken passed between us, an old, familiar kind of warning. "Now," she added gently, which somehow sounded more threatening than shouting. Mara walked past her, head bowed. Mrs. Haldon didn't move until Mara was several steps down the hall. Then she looked back at me. "You need to be careful," she murmured. "You don't understand the consequences of involving yourself." Her voice trembled on consequences, and that tremble told the truth better than any words. "Does he hurt her?" I asked. Her eyes closed for a brief moment. "Please, don't ask me questions I can't answer." "But you know," I pressed. She opened her eyes, and pain flickered there, pain and guilt, sharp as broken glass. "This family is complicated. There are expectations, appearances." She swallowed hard. "He is under a great deal of pressure." "Pressure doesn't cause bruises," I said. Something in her posture broke, a fissure in a flawless statue. "I tried," she whispered, barely audible. "When he was young, I tried to stop his father, but some men only learn what they live." The words hit me like a blow. He learned it. He inherited it. She stepped closer, gripping my arm. "If you help her escape, he will go after her. And he will take the children. You don't understand him like I do." "But you don't stop him," I said quietly, tears welled in her eyes. "I can't." The helplessness in her voice was almost unbearable. But then her fingers tightened on my arm. "If you care about anyone in this house," she whispered, "keep your head down, don't get involved, don't make him suspicious." Her voice cracked. "And for God's sake, don't go down to the basement." She turned and hurried after Mara, wiping her tears as she went. I stood alone in the silence, the small key burning in my pocket like a forbidden promise. Don't go to the basement. Which meant one thing, the answers were there. And the next morning, when I finally unlocked the basement locker, I discovered a secret that proved this family's darkness went far beyond bruises. The basement always felt colder than the rest of the house, colder and somehow older, like the walls remembered things the family tried to forget. I walked down the concrete steps early in the morning before anyone else was awake, clutching the small key in my palm. The locker Mara mentioned sat against the far wall, rust creeping along its edges. I hesitated, listening for footsteps, for the familiar weight of the son's presence. Silence. I slid the key into the lock. It turned too easily. Inside were three things: a stack of folders, a small metal box, and a child's drawing. I reached for the drawing first. It was crumpled, made with the shaky hand of someone very young. A stick figure family stood under a sun, but the father figure had scribbled black around his hands, thick, furious strokes. The mother figure had red marks on her face. The drawing was signed in big letters, Emma. My throat tightened. Next, I opened the folders. They held photographs of bruises, Myra's arm, her ribs, her shoulder blade. Some dated from last year, others from months ago. Some were clearly old. The bruises had faded to sickly yellow-green. She had been documenting everything. The metal box was locked. I hesitated. Then I pried it open with a screwdriver from a nearby shelf. Inside were USB drives, 5 of them, each labeled with dates. My heart pounded as I plugged one into the old laptop the family kept down here for storage inventory. The screen flickered, then displayed a folder of video files. I clicked one. At first, I heard voices, shouting, crashing. Then I saw it, the sun towering over Mara, grabbing her, shaking her. The camera angle was from a hallway shelf. I realized these were from the hidden cameras she had planted, not the ones the family used. Proof. Undeniable, damning proof. A sick feeling crawled up my spine. If he ever discovered this, he would destroy her and anyone who helped her. Footsteps echoed faintly above me. Someone was awake. I quickly gathered the folders and the USB-S, placing them back in the box and returning it to the locker. But before I closed the door, something caught my eye. A second drawing. This one was done by Luke. It showed a man with a raised hand, and underneath it, a small figure lying on the floor. The label read, Mom. I tucked the drawing into my apron, locked the locker, and hurried upstairs. But when I reached the top step, the son was standing there, watching me, and the smile he gave me told me he knew I had seen something I wasn't supposed to. He leaned against the doorway with that smooth, polished smile he wore for investors and guests. But his eyes were needles. Downstairs early today, he said casually, but I could hear the blade beneath the words. Doing inventory? I steadied my breathing. Yes, sir. Mrs. Halden said we were running low on storage space. A lie, a flimsy one. He stepped closer. Too close. His cologne pressed into my lungs like smoke. You know, he murmured, my father always said maids are like walls. They hear everything, but good ones don't repeat it. I forced a polite smile. Of course, sir. His gaze dropped to my apron. For a terrifying second, I thought he might see the child's drawing tucked inside. But then he stepped past me and began descending the stairs. I'll check the basement later, he said. Make sure things are in order. My heart lurched. He would notice. He would see the box had been moved. He would know. I hurried upstairs, forcing myself not to run. Mara was in the kitchen, making tea with trembling hands. She looked at me, questioning. I shook my head subtly. Later. The rest of the morning passed painfully slow. I checked the hallway cameras. He had turned them off. Not all of them. Only the ones facing the basement. He knew. During lunch, he sat at the table with the children while Mara served food. I watched him from the corner of my eye. His demeanor was perfect, charming, composed. He laughed at something Luke said, ruffled Emma's hair. But every few minutes his gaze drifted toward me, measuring, calculating. After lunch, he asked me to bring fresh sheets to the guest room. Upstairs, alone, my pulse thudded painfully as I climbed the steps. The house felt wrong, too quiet, too watchful. When I entered the guest room, he was already there, sitting on the edge of the bed. You've been here a long time, he said. 7 years, I trust you. My mother trusts you. His voice softened, but his eyes didn't. So I need to know something. He stood. Did Mara ask you for help? I froze. One wrong word and everything, Mara, the children, the proof would be lost. But before I could answer, someone screamed downstairs. The scream sliced through the house. High, terrified, unmistakably a child. I bolted past him before he could react, flying down the stairs 2 at a time. My pulse hammered in my ears. When I reached the living room, Emma was standing there, crying, clutching her hand. Mrs. Halden hovered over her, pale and shaking. I just dropped a glass, Emma sobbed. It shattered. The floor glittered with shards. Her small palm was nicked and bleeding. A simple accident. But the son arrived a second later, breath sharp with irritation, not concern. His eyes locked on Mara. What did you do? He demanded. Mara froze. I wasn't even here. I was in the kitchen. You weren't watching her, he snapped. You know she's clumsy. Something in him shifted, something I recognized from the videos. His jaw tightened, his shoulders squared. The room shrank. He stepped toward Mara. Don't, Mrs. Haldon whispered. It was barely audible, but it was the first time I'd ever heard her tell him no. He turned on her. Stay out of it. Emma cried harder, terrified. He grabbed Mara's arm too tightly, too familiar. Let go of her, I said before I could stop myself. The room froze. He looked at me slowly, like he was deciding whether I was still furniture or a threat. What did you say? He asked softly. My heartbeat thundered. My palms went cold. I said, I repeated, forcing my voice steady, let go of her. The children are watching. He held my gaze for a long, suffocating moment. Then he released her, but not gently. Mara stumbled back, clutching her arm. He turned toward the children, smoothing his hair, forcing a smile. Everyone calmed down. It was an accident. But the shift in the room told the truth. The children had seen him, really seen him. That scared him more than anything. He stormed out of the room. Mara sank to the floor, shaking. I knelt beside her. We can't wait, she whispered. He's losing control. I know, I said. Tonight. We do it tonight. Mrs. Haldon looked up sharply. What are you planning? Her voice trembled, not with fear for herself, but for all of us. Mara met her eyes. We're leaving. Mrs. Haldon closed her eyes, a tear sliding down her cheek. Then you need to be very careful. Because none of us knew that he was already listening from the hallway. Night fell heavy and tense, the house unnervingly silent. The plan was simple. Mara, the children, and I would leave through the back garden gate at midnight. Mrs. Haldon would distract him, she insisted, saying she owed Mara that much. But fear gnawed at me. He had been too quiet all evening. Too controlled. I checked the basement again, needing to make sure nothing had changed. The locker was untouched. The box remained inside. Except the drawing I had taken from Luke was no longer in my apron pocket. My blood went cold. He had been in my room. Footsteps sounded above me, someone descending. I ducked behind the shelves just as the son entered the basement. He walked to the locker, unlocked it with a key of his own, and opened the metal box. Calm, methodical. He lifted the USBs one by one. He knew. He placed them back neatly, then pulled something from his jacket pocket, the drawing. He stared at it, his face unreadable. Then he ripped it in half, then again, then again. Rage twisted inside me, but I stayed silent, invisible. He closed the locker, locked it, and turned. His gaze swept the basement. Searching. I held my breath until he finally left. When I crept upstairs, the house felt suffocating. He was unpredictable now, cornered men often are. I hurried to the kitchen, where Mara and the children waited with bags tucked under their coats. We leave now, I whispered. He knows about the basement. Mara paled. How? He found the drawing, I swallowed. And he opened the box. She shook, wrapping her arms around Emma and Luke. We have to go. As we stepped toward the back door, the lights suddenly flicked on. He stood in the doorway. Blocking our exit, Mara gasped. The children froze. He looked calm, eerily so. Going somewhere? I moved in front of the children. Let us pass. He smiled, a slow, cold smile. No. Then Mrs. Haldon appeared behind him, eyes wide with terror. Please, she begged. Let them go. Let the children go. Mother, he said without looking back, go upstairs. She didn't move. He turned then slowly. I said, go. Upstairs, she shook her head. Not this time. Something in his expression cracked, and suddenly I understood. She wasn't afraid for herself. She was. When his hand slipped into his jacket, Mara screamed. I grabbed the children and pushed them behind me. Mrs. Haldon stepped between him and us, hands trembling but raised. Stop, she pleaded. Please. He pulled out not a weapon but his phone. He unlocked it with a swipe and held it up like a threat. I have recordings, he hissed. All of you plotting behind my back. You think you can take my children. My family, Mara shook her head violently. They're not safe with you. His voice turned savage. They're mine. The children flinched. Something in me snapped. They're not your property, I said. They're terrified of you. For the first time, his anger shifted into something like uncertainty, like a crack in a wall he thought was solid. You think you know anything? He spit. You're just the help. But I see everything, I said. And I saw the videos. His face drained of color. Mrs. Haldon gasped softly. Videos? I nodded. The locker, the box, I saw what you did. He lunged at me. Mara grabbed the nearest object, a ceramic vase, and smashed it against his arm. He roared in pain, stumbling. Mrs. Haldon pulled the children away as I shoved him back with all my strength. "Run!" I yelled. Mara grabbed Luke. Mrs. Haldon grabbed Emma. We bolted for the back door. I heard him scrambling behind us, cursing, feet pounding against the tile. We tore through the garden, branches scratching our arms. The gate was ahead, 5 steps, 4, 3, a hand clamped down on my shoulder. He yanked me backward. "You ruined everything," he screamed. I twisted, kicking, clawing. He slammed me against the fence, breath hot with fury. "Do you know what happens now?" he growled. "I'll take the kids. Mara will come crawling back. And you," a sound cracked through the air. A voice. "Let her go." Emma, standing there with a garden rake raised like a weapon, hands shaking but eyes blazing. Something inside him faltered. Something inside me ignited. I shoved him hard. He stumbled, losing his grip. Mara and Mrs. Haldon pulled the children through the gate. I ran, all of us, into the night, leaving him screaming behind the fence like an animal trapped in his own rage. But we didn't know then that escape was only the beginning, and that the darkest secret had yet to surface. We made it 3 blocks before we collapsed behind an empty bus stop, gasping, shaking. Mara held the children close, sobbing into their hair. Mrs. Haldon leaned against the wall, hand over her mouth, tears streaking silently down her cheeks. I kept watch, heart still slamming against my ribs. "We need to call someone," Mara whispered. "Police, shelter, anyone." Mrs. Haldon stiffened. "He'll twist it, he always does." "Not with the USBS," I said, but her expression grew strange, tired, haunted. "There's something you don't know." I waited. She swallowed. "The cameras that he installed, they weren't to protect the house. They were to protect him." I frowned. "From what?" "From his father," she said. Silence settled over us. "I told you he learned what he lived," she whispered. "But I didn't tell you everything. When he was 8, his father broke his arm. When he was 10, her voice cracked. He tried to protect me. And for that, he paid." Mara covered her mouth, horrified. Mrs. Haldon continued, voice trembling. "I thought I could stop the cycle. I failed. He became exactly what hurt him." A heavy, devastating truth. "He needs help," she said. "Real help. And maybe this time, with evidence, someone will finally listen." I nodded slowly. "Then we take it to the police, all of it. And you," she added, looking at me with raw gratitude, "saved us. All of us." I didn't feel like a savior. My hands still shook. My body still throbbed from where he slammed me. But I knew one thing, this family's silence ended tonight. We walked to the nearest police station. The officer at the desk stiffened when he saw our bruises, the children's frightened eyes, the fear we tried and failed to hide. When he asked for proof, I handed him the USB drives and the folders from the locker. He looked at Mara. "Do you want to press charges?" She nodded. Hard, Mrs. Haldon stepped forward. "I will too." Hours passed. Statements. Questions, medical exams. By dawn, he had been arrested. But the house, that house, still lingered inside us, its shadows clinging like dust. When we finally stepped outside into the morning air, Emma slipped her small hand into mine. "Are we safe now?" she asked. I hesitated. Mara watched me, eyes full of fragile hope. Mrs. Haldon watched too, knowing the truth more deeply than any of us. I squeezed Emma's hand gently. "We're safer than we were yesterday," I said. "And tomorrow will be safer than today." It wasn't a promise, just a beginning. But even as the sun rose, I couldn't shake the feeling that the house still had one more secret left to tell, and someday it would find its way back to us.